You're standing on the slippery shingles of your roof in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. It's late afternoon on May 31st, 1889. Cold, relentless rain has been hammering the valley for days. The streets below are already flooded, the muddy water reaching your knees. Suddenly, a low, terrifying rumble echoes from up the valley. At first, you think it's thunder, but this sound is deeper, like 1,000 freight trains roaring toward you at full speed. You look north, and then you see it. A massive, black, boiling wall of destruction, towering 60 feet high. It's not just water. It's a churning monster of mud, uprooted trees, shattered houses, and twisted train cars. White foam explodes from its crest as it races forward at 40 miles per hour. In the next 10 minutes, more than 2,200 people will die. This is the exact moment when time runs out. Just hours earlier, life felt almost ordinary. Johnstown was a busy industrial hub where steel mills belched smoke into the gray sky. Families went about their routines, and children splashed in puddles. To the residents, flooding was simply part of life in the valley. They had learned to move belongings upstairs and wait for the water to recede. But a much greater danger lurked 14 miles upstream. High in the hills sat Lake Conemaugh, held back by the South Fork Dam. Once part of a canal system, it was now an exclusive resort for the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club, owned by the richest men in America, including Andrew Carnegie and Henry Clay Frick. To cater to their luxury, these men had made fatal changes to the dam. They lowered the structure to build a carriage road, removed critical drainage pipes, and installed iron screens that clogged with debris. Engineers repeatedly warned that the dam was unsafe, but the wealthy club members ignored them. They believed their status made them untouchable. Throughout that fateful day, urgent telegraphs flew down the valley. The dam is leaking. Prepare for a major flood. But in Johnstown, most residents shrugged it off. They trusted that the millionaire's dam would hold. They were tragically wrong. At approximately 3:10 p.m., the impossible happened. High in the mountains, the South Fork Dam did not simply leak. It collapsed catastrophically. The massive earthen structure, weakened by neglect, gave way with a thunderous explosion. 20 million tons of water burst free in a single violent moment, emptying the entire lake down the narrow valley in less than an hour. The sound was a deep, guttural roar that vibrated through the earth. You felt it in your chest before you understood the danger. The air grew thick with the scent of wet soil and crushed pine. Then the wave appeared. It looked like a living, breathing mountain of black mud and debris. Trees the size of houses tumbled in the current. Entire buildings were torn from their foundations and pulverized. Twisted railroad tracks were tossed like toys. From your rooftop, you watched in frozen horror as the wall of destruction barreled toward the villages upstream. Wooden houses were shattered into splinters in seconds. Bridges were ripped away like paper. The sound was a deafening mix of earth-shaking thunder and the sickening crash of metal and stone. People in those settlements had only minutes. Some stood paralyzed in disbelief, while others tried to climb trees. But the wave was simply too fast. You stand on your roof, heart hammering as the roar grows louder. The sky is dark with storm clouds, and the air feels electric with danger. You can see the leading edge of the flood, a boiling front of white foam, swallowing the landscape as it races directly toward Johnstown. You have perhaps 5 minutes left. The final seconds of normal life are ticking away, and there is nothing anyone can do to stop what is coming. The ground trembles harder. The roar drowns out every other sound. No more. Screams. No more rain, only the noise of the monster. People below finally begin to panic, slipping in the muddy streets or clutching children as they scramble onto roofs. A woman screams for her husband. A man drags a heavy chest up a ladder. It's too late. The wave hits the edge of town with unimaginable force, slamming into Washington Street like a freight train of liquid steel. The first row of houses explodes on impact. Your own house begins to shake violently. The timbers groan and crack like bones breaking. You grip the chimney with both hands as the floor beneath you lurches. Then comes the impact. The wave strikes your home with brutal force. Windows explode inward, spraying glass everywhere. The walls buckle and collapse in a single sickening crash. In one brutal second, the entire house disintegrates like an eggshell. You are thrown violently into the churning flood. The water is ice cold and thick with mud, so heavy it feels like wet concrete. It slams into your body with crushing pressure. You tumble underwater, disoriented, lungs burning as you fight desperately to reach the surface. Sharp debris cuts into your arms and legs. Broken planks, twisted metal, tree branches. Something heavy scrapes across your back. You break the surface, gasping for air, only to be hit by another wave of debris. You spot a large barn roof spinning past in the current and lunge toward it. Your fingers catch the wet edge of the shingle. You pull yourself up, chest heaving as the roof rolls and pitches like a ship in a storm. Now you are riding this makeshift raft through hell itself. The barn roof tumbles and spins in the violent current. Every rotation threatens to throw you off into the deadly water. You cling with raw, bleeding hands. From this terrifying vantage point, you see the full horror. Houses, factories, and churches are being torn apart all around you. You see people you know, neighbors, friends, clinging to whatever they can find. A mother is desperately holding two small children on a floating piano. For a brief moment, your eyes meet hers. Then a massive tree trunk slams into them and they vanish beneath the black water. An old man stands on the roof of a floating wagon, hands raised in prayer before the wagon flips, and he disappears. The flood carries you faster through what used to be the center of town. You pass the stone bridge where dozens have gathered, thinking it was safe, but debris piles up against it, forming a new dam of smashed houses and rail cars. The pressure builds until the bridge itself begins to groan. Your lungs burn. Your hands are numb and bleeding. You glance at your pocket watch. It's just past 4:20 p.m. Less than 10 minutes have passed since the dam broke. In those 10 minutes, your entire world has been erased. When the monstrous wave finally slowed, the once thriving town of Johnstown had been almost completely erased. 4 square miles of the city lay in ruins, buried under 10 feet of thick, sticky mud, twisted metal, and shattered wood. The air was filled with the sickening smell of destruction, wet earth, broken timber, and death. More than 2,200 people lost their lives that day. Entire families were wiped out. 99 whole families disappeared without a trace. Hundreds of children never made it to higher ground, and many bodies were carried miles downstream, never to be recovered. For weeks, search parties found victims tangled in trees or buried deep in the mud. The survivors who reached the hills stood in stunned silence, looking down at the void where their lives used to be. Some had lost everything, their homes, their businesses, and everyone they loved, in less than 10 minutes. And the men responsible? The wealthy members of the South Fork Fishing and Hunting Club faced almost no consequences. They claimed it was an act of God, a natural disaster no one could have predicted. Despite lawsuits, their power and influence protected them. No one went to prison and no one was held truly accountable for the modifications that turned a dam into a time bomb. You survived, but at what cost? You sit on the remains of that barn roof as the water slowly recedes, shivering and broken. The town you grew up in no longer exists. Even today, more than 135 years later, the Johnstown flood remains one of the deadliest disasters in American history, caused not by nature alone, but by human negligence and greed. The painful truth is, nothing has really changed. Thousands of dams across the United States and around the world are aging and poorly maintained. Warnings are still ignored, and safety standards are often cut for profit. Water doesn't care about money or status. When the dam breaks, it treats everyone the same. In those final terrifying seconds, as the black wall raced toward you, what would you have done? Would you have held someone you love, or fought for one last breath? That is the question this disaster forces us to face. Comment below. Which part of these final seconds hit you the hardest? Type next if you want another intense final seconds disaster within the next 7 days. If you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications, because in life, time can run out faster than any of us expect. Stay safe out there.